It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
Do you partner with anyone on the deals you do? Do you go into them by yourself?
Mostly partnerships. So I went to this conference one time and this guy talked about 100 partnerships to 10 mil. And he had this whole thing he was talking about, but essentially he was like, Zig Ziglar, if you help enough people get what they want, you get what you want, right? We all have either credit, cash, time, or skill, right? And so I'm usually willing to give my time and my skill and a little bit of cash to make sure these deals go through. So some of the first ones I were like investment club deals, it was like 5 to 10 people on one house or one truck or one project. Now I'm more on the JV deal side, like me and one other person, right? Because I can't control, you could be in your house right now. 4 people can't even agree on what y'all want to eat for lunch after church. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
How do you think you're going to always have agreements when you have 5 or 10 people and stuff? And so I try to do JV deals where if somebody wants to purchase a truck, it's just me and that person. Or if they want to purchase a house, it's just me and that person. And I do all the management over here and the phone calls and the legwork kind of thing. So
Sounds good. Sounds good. I think that's very valuable. And, in our community, sometimes, well, a lot of times, we don't really trust each other or trust other people. We don't really want to work with other people. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you think we can move past that?
So you got to think about what people are dealing with. That's a scarcity mindset. Like I remember this woman being like, man, I want that person's life. And I'm like, but you have your own life. Like that's a scarcity mentality. And there is such a scarcity, like I have to take this from somebody to win, right? Me win, you lose, instead of a win-win. And unfortunately, like when people aren't making good income, it's a struggle. But I have a lot of middle-class Black friends and they're in tech, they're doing different stuff. It ain't no thing for them to partner with people 10K here, 20K here. But if you were to talk to somebody who was maybe an economic ladder shorter, they're like, well, if we can get 100 people to put $1,000 in, we will have this much. And I go, honey, I'd much rather you and your brother go get your credit cleaned up, save your money for 6 months, and then y'all come together. And once you show people you have results, you can bring all those other people with you. But to try to get 100 people to do, you know what I mean? It's like, let's just focus on 2 people to make a deal work. And that's the problem. We have a lot of people who are like, but the big picture is hundreds of people. And I'm like, I get you, boo-boo, but let's focus on just you and your brother, like, or just another person. You can go much farther that way, I think, in my opinion.
For sure. And then Cleveland, what got you interested in expanding to that market?
Actually, after I visited, like for a while, they're like, oh, Cleveland is cash flow. I'm like, and then I get there and see they have engineering and bottle manufacturing and other stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So my thought process of Ohio was like, it was a worse Detroit. I had it wrong, like Cleveland used to make fun of Detroit. Now Cleveland's like, hey, I wish we speed up some of our recovery too,
Yeah.
And so that kind of cemented it for me in the numbers. It was like a 40K. It's like a 30K deal. We put 15 into it. Each part rents out for like 800 or something to that effect, or like 750. So it's, for 50K in, less than 50K in, you got a pretty good return.
That's pretty solid. Is that one a multi-unit?
Multi-unit, 2-unit. So it was just like, oh, duplex. Okay.
Definitely. Now, are you still in North Carolina as well?
North Carolina is more like stuff I had with my family, some land that has trailers on it, that kind of combination of stuff. Here in Texas I'm trying to get more land. I have a kid. I'm paying to make cold calls all day, trying to get me some land, and I'll put more projects out here in Texas.
For sure. You mentioned in North Carolina it's more so family. That's another thing. Some people don't like working with family. What's that been like for you?
Well, here's the thing. So one of my sister has a truck under my authority. I've had a cousin who I was willing to teach everything, step A through 10. And then he went and gave his money to some other man down the street and lost it and was like, come help me. And I'm like, no, honey, I tried to help you the first time. And I think your family will always, unfortunately, unless you have drastic change or move away from home, will always see you as that 9-year-old kid who was like, I remember when you were chubby and you did this and that. And they got all these stories, but they can't put their new eyes on and see you as an adult who has lots of accomplishments. I mean, it was just last week when my cousin saw an ad from her on the internet for me and was like, oh my God. He was like, how do I start a business? And I was like, well, what kind of business do you want to start? I mean, he had the most basic questions. I'm like, you're talking to someone who has multiple businesses and made millions of dollars. That is your cousin. And you have like, how much is an LLC question? That's crazy, you know? So it's tough working with family because of the perspective or how they see you.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I agree. Like sometimes they just see us as a little kid and it's like, you could be doing great things, but they don't really see it as great things. They see it, some family, they see what you're doing, even though it's remarkable. They see it as like, oh, that's, his little hobby, especially if it's something that they don't, his or her hobby, especially if it's something they don't understand,
They love saying your little business, how your little business doing?
Yeah.
$1 million. That's how my little business. I used to be like a jerk sometime at Thanksgiving. I'll probably do that again this year. I'll be like, just coming in here with my fur coat on. Excuse me, everybody. I think I had a petty moment where I left a ATM receipt down one time, and one of my cousins was like, "Oh my God, look at that!" Right, and it was funny. But you can tell people value money differently, right? One time I bought like $300 in crab legs or something, and they were like, "You got money like that?" And I'm like, "Y'all, it's crab legs. It's $300. It's something visual. It's something tangible. Something." Like they wouldn't spend it, kind of conversation. So it's pretty funny.
For sure. And now Texas, it sounds like you got some cool things going on in Texas.
There was a book called Rooted, and I read that book like 7 times. And it was like growing in the places where God has you, right? You can't be two-footed. I can't be like, I'm in Texas, but I could go back to North Carolina. And I kept doing that for years. Like, well, if something would happen, if I had a surgery, I had 2 surgeries here, I would go home to North Carolina for a month. I would just be home with family, and they'd be like, either you're going to have to be here in Texas or go back to North Carolina. You have to pick. You can't be of 2 minds, right? You can't be completely focused on the news in North Carolina and Texas at the same time. And so I kind of released about 2 years ago. I really just made a mental judgment, like, stop. Like, we're going to put 10x into Texas. And the deals and the opportunities have shown up. So.
For sure. And you mentioned you just made a pretty large land acquisition. So can you talk us through that?
So it's called Texas Ground Zero because I don't want y'all being worse somewhere coming by my business.
Good
Texas
idea.
Ground Zero, and it's 18 acres. The first 3 acres in the front is a truck repair shop that just got expanded inside. So it went from 4 bays to 7 bays. It's gonna have a food court in the front part. We're gonna have like food trucks come out, very Austin type thing. In the back, probably gonna have over 500 or 600 available parking spots for trucks, probably closer to 500. And then we're gonna have a little future side motel on the left-hand side of the property. So I'm super excited because, I thought, man, it's gonna take me a year or 2 to get all this like the way I want. And somebody called up the other day like, hey, we've got 1,500 loads of dirt. That would be enough to level the whole place. And I would just make my parking lot, right? So opportunity moves fast. You just have to be in position. And the reason I even got the deal is someone who's watching my YouTube for years talked me up to these people, and then was like, I was like, hey, you want to be 10% of this deal? Yeah. I was like, how about 30%? And I mean, he's the brains. He's the brains as far as construction goes. Because for me, I'd be like, okay, sure. How, where? I'm more of the vision of like what I can see it could be. But
that's incredible.
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate? Yeah. Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance? You know who it is. The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the #1 place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
Speaking of contractors, what's been your experience with contractors? What of, I guess, some of the highs, some of the lows?
I mean, I'm still working through.
Yeah.
I'm still working through. Like, I met a contractor today that I liked his energy and vibe. He walked He happened to be at a project that I was walking earlier, and he knew who I was, but I didn't know who he was. But he was, he seemed like he knew his stuff, and I was like, okay, maybe we can do something together. So yours it's almost ever evolving until you have literally found like that marriage. There's some people who are married to their contractor, who have great relationships, and they're with them forever. I've not found that yet. So I'm still open, but the vetting process is definitely, gotten stricter. I want to see current projects. I want to see, I want to make sure you have, the budget and the wherewithal, to get started with this project, to fund it, to do whatever. Right. So it's still a work in progress. I've had some great experiences with contractors and some not so great experiences. So, with contractors not wanting to warrant their own work, like it's work that they already did, but they didn't do it right. And so when you ask them to come back and fix it and do it right, they want to charge you. And it's like, you didn't do it right the first time, so there's so much, there's a lot, but again, it's a learning process for myself and everybody who has to go through it, because you got to go through it. You got to go through it. Again, unless you have, like I said earlier, a mentor, a business coach who is bringing you right to their awesome and amazing contractor that they've had a relationship with for years,
Yep, definitely. And I think it's been a big theme in the interview is that you just continue to learn. You just continue to learn and keep the ball rolling, and just not, in the face of anything that happened, you just kept going. You kept learning from each experience, taking it, refining until you're where you're at today. And you're, like you said, you're still working, you're still learning and growing, but you're still going as well.
Yeah,
for sure. Can you tell us more about Flipping in Heels?
Yeah, of course. So Flipping in Heels
and
is my baby. Yes. So Flipping in Heels was created to highlight and educate successful women in real estate, to highlight them, but then also to educate women who were looking to get involved in real estate and learn, a lot more about investing. Like I said, when I spent my thousands of dollars in the Guru program, it was not with a woman owned company, a woman run company, and it was definitely not a Black woman really in sight. I think it was maybe like 2 or 3, or it wasn't that many at the entire company, especially ones who were quote unquote successful. And so, as I mentioned earlier, representation is key, right? Exposure is key. So seeing people who are successful or at a certain level who look like you, people who are experiencing success, or just, a support group really for women in general, women of all colors, because it is a very male-dominated industry. And, women, I wanted to show that women in real estate could be more than just realtors, wearing the pretty skirts and opening the doors to nice homes, you have general contractors, you have, your landlords, you have your flippers, you have, a lot of women who are really in the nitty gritty of it. And it's not all pretty, right? So Flipping in Heels, it's a community that was created for that. And then under Flipping in Heels, there's a women's membership group, and it's called Infinity. And it's called Infinity because the community is ongoing, right? It's never ending. It's not a course that has a beginning, middle, and end, but it has a membership, because I believe that wealth building is an ongoing conversation. Like, we can be at different journeys. We can be at different steps and phases, or we will be at different steps and phases throughout our wealth building journey. And you may not need, everything all at once, but you may need this here, this there. So I wanted to create that type of space and that type of community for women where we could support one another in that capacity too. But we are growing every single day.
That's amazing.
So I'm excited. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. And again, continuing the conversation and the purpose-driven work, to help more women invest in real estate, more homeowners and more people educated, in our communities and things like that.
For sure. Big shout out to you for doing that, and and paying it forward and sharing the knowledge and helping people everywhere, all over the country. Wow, this has been a really, really amazing interview. And just the thing that keeps coming through my mind is just the fact that, you started where you started, $2,500 investment, and there were some bumps along the way, but look where you are now, in a short period of time. So I think it's definitely an inspiration to me and to others that, you just have to get in the game. You just have to learn. And like you said, the big advantage we have now is there's so much information on social media, on the internet, YouTube, and there's a lot of information where people can be at an okay place. There are, the Infinity membership, different opportunities for people to gain education, so they feel in a comfortable place for whatever their first step is. But that wouldn't be possible without someone taking some bumps, being able to help people out. So I really do appreciate you diving more into that.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.